Hi, and welcome back to Tailboard Talks, checking in with GFR. This is video number 5 and video number 2 of the Resilience series. My name is Janelle Williams. I'm a behavioral health consultant at the Department of Family Medicine at East Carolina University, and I'm also a third-year clinical health psychology doctoral student. Like I said, this is video number 5, part 2 of our Resilience series, and let's get to it. So to get started, we're going to be talking about, we're going to have a brief review of our resilience series, a little refresher, and then we'll get into what is physical resilience, our topic at hand today, and then we'll be talking a little bit about some tips related to physical activity as well as nutrition. So this is part 2 of our resilience series, as I've said, and we're going to be discussing ways that being resilient and developing resiliency can impact you as a first responder. Much like we discussed in the last video, there are a lot of ways that you can build resilience and increase resilience. This isn't just a personality trait that you either have or you don't have. Instead, this is something that you can build, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And why would you want to learn how to increase your resilience or how to build your resilience? Well, as we discussed last time, there are some really important and helpful benefits that go along with resilience, including increased performance in memory, decision-making, and creativity, improved health, including lower blood pressure, better sleep, and a longer lifespan, and improved teamwork and leadership. So resilient leaders are more valued by their team. And as we go through physical resilience today, I would like for you all to keep in mind this metaphor that we spoke about the first time. We talked about what happens when each of these are knocked to the ground. You know, that represents going through a hard time in life. There's usually, two responses. You either crack like that egg or you bounce back like that tennis ball. And this is the metaphor again that I want you to keep in mind as we go through this. All of these skills and tips that we're going to be talking through today are skills that are going to help you to be better able to bounce back like that tennis ball. So, to further review, we introduced the 4 pillars of resilience: mental, physical, social, and spiritual resilience in the first video. And today we're going to be talking about physical resilience. So physical resilience is the ability to adapt to adopt and sustain healthy behaviors needed to enhance health as well as wellness. So something that I like to keep in mind with this is that, in order to be the best version of ourselves, we need to make sure that we're taking care of our physical needs. So we have this pyramid that kind of shows us what all of our needs are. And at the bottom, the base of that pyramid, our foundation for being kind of self-actualized human beings, being the person that we want to be, the best version of ourselves. Down there at the bottom, we have physiological needs. So those are things like food, water, shelter, sleep. Those are all really important things that we need to be the best version of ourselves, to be our best, the best version of ourselves as a partner, as a spouse, as a first responder, as a friend. It's harder to be that best version of ourselves if our physiological needs, including physical activity and nutrition, are not taken care of. So maintaining physical resilience is going to help us to maintain those other types of resilience that we talked about: mental resilience, social resilience, and spiritual resilience. And taking care of our basic physical needs is going to help us meet our other needs. So again, that means eating the right types of food, drinking enough water, getting enough sleep, and exercising regularly. All of those are going to be really helpful in making us more resilient in other areas of our lives. So with today's video about physical resilience, we're going to be focusing on physical activity and nutrition. So for physical activity, we're going to talk a little bit about activity pacing and making sure that we don't injure ourselves, making sure that we can sustain and recover appropriately. We're going to be talking about SMART goals as well. I know you guys have touched on this before. I'm going to touch on this from a behavioral perspective. And again, SMART goal stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. We want to focus on goals that have all 5 of those elements. For nutrition, we want to focus on making sure that we can find ways to incorporate the right quality, quantity, and frequency of foods in our diet. And nutrition in general just focuses on making sure that we are eating enough healthy food that's going to help us to take care of whatever the mission is at hand. So nutrition is really important, and we'll be talking about that in our kind of second part of this video, but our first part is going to be focusing on physical activity. So thinking about physical health and first responders, I like to start off with this really great quote that we have. So firefighters take health risks every single time they walk through the bay doors of their fire station. While firefighters undergo rigorous training to ensure they respond as safely as possible to a variety of emergencies, they often overlook steps that can help protect their personal health. That's a quote from Keith Collins, an alumni of the Fire Science Management at the American Military University. So, of course, this applies not just to firefighters, but to all first responders. And when we look at the overall physical health of our first responders, we see that there's a higher rate of obesity, cancer, cardiovascular disease, strokes, and musculoskeletal injuries than folks who are not first responders. And this is due to, the high occupational risk factors that are involved in the job. So many departments are creating standard operating guidelines, or SOGs, that are geared toward improving first responder health. But regardless of your department's resources or funding, your actions are really going to be what determines your health and wellness. So thinking about physical activity, fire and rescue scenes can be very physically demanding, as you all know. And maintaining a well-rounded fitness routine is going to allow you to meet the demands of your job. So what does this mean? What does a well-rounded fitness routine look like? Really, it means consistent workouts with a solid combination of cardio, mobility or flexibility exercises, and core strength exercises. All of those are going to help you to reduce your chance of injury, maintain a healthy weight, and to manage stress due to some endorphins that are being released. So with this, I know every station has a fitness center. I know you all also have access to the Greenville Aquatic Center. There are a lot of different ways to incorporate this combination of activities, because the combination is really important. Oftentimes when we think about people working out, I feel like the 2 most common thoughts are people going for a run, or run on the treadmill, or doing the stair stepper, and then there's weightlifting. Usually we don't think as much about flexibility exercises and stretching, and we don't really think about the combination as much either. So again, that combination of those 3 different types of exercises is really important. And as always, if you have any questions or you really want to know more about how you can improve your current workout routine, you can always reach out to your chain of command. You can ask your station officer, and they can give you a little bit more guidance about some different exercise programs. So next, I want to talk about activity pacing. So activity pacing is really helpful, especially for folks who have pain. And a lot of us have pain. So I always like to talk about how important it is to really make sure that we're not starting this cycle of overdoing it. Maybe we're having a day where we're feeling pretty good, we're feeling pretty confident, maybe it's a good pain day, and then we're like, ooh, I am feeling great, I'm going to go out there and I am just going to run 5 miles after maybe not running very frequently. So when people do that, what tends to happen is, they have that run, they feel great, they feel fantastic, maybe partially because the endorphins, maybe they decide to do something else, or maybe they decide to take it easy for the rest of the day. But regardless, their body is like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing. I wasn't ready for it, which can be tough on your body. And usually what we find is the next day or the next couple days, people are in a lot of pain. And because they're in pain, they tend to take a break to recover. And they take a longer break than they would maybe if they hadn't quite had overdone it so much. And then they just kind of get back into the cycle of, I rested because I was in pain. I haven't worked out in like a week. I'm feeling really good. Let me go back and overdo it all over again because I need to catch up on the exercise opportunities that I've missed. So what we want is to avoid that cycle. And one of the best ways to avoid that cycle is with activity pacing. So the way that we kind of focus our activity pacing is using these 4 steps. So first, you consider about how long you can exercise before you start to feel pain. So for instance, if someone is able to exercise for 30 minutes without pain, that would be the number that they're starting with. Then we cut down that time to by about a fourth or to half to find our target time. So if we take 30 minutes and we cut that time down to half, we have 15 minutes. What we want to do is when we engage in that activity, we want to make sure that we're stopping at that target time. So if 30 minutes is my amount of activity that I can engage in before I feel pain, I've cut that back to 15 minutes. I want to make sure that when I'm working out, I am stopping after 15 minutes, even if I am not in pain. So what that does is that allows us to maintain a kind of a doable amount of exercise for our body. So we want to do this 15 minutes every day instead of maybe 30 minutes before that was working for us, but kind of leading us into that area where we were ending up in pain. So if we follow this kind of target activity range, we can actually work on building this up over time because we don't have those days where we've overdone it. We don't need those days to recover. We're able to engage in activity every day. So again, we want to make sure that with this, we're including strength activity, flexibility activity, as well as endurance activities. And kind of our last bullet point under activity pacing is we want to remember that it is so important to make sure that we are doing some activity every day. And then we have our slow increases. So we spoke a little bit about this under activity pacing, but slow increases, it's just small ways to make sure that our activity is adding up. So it can be really small changes. So that could be anything from adding an extra 500 steps or an extra 5 push-ups a few days a week. All of these things add up. They might sound small, but they really do add up, especially if we continue to build on them. So like this bullet says, small changes are really the most effective way to sustain changes related to either diet or physical activity. So we want to make sure that we're sticking with those small changes. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about SMART goals. So again, our SMART goals are those that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And I know that you guys have SMART goals, and I just want to go through a little bit more in detail from the behavioral perspective that I bring to the table. So for specific, we want to make sure that our goal is clear and very easy to understand. With measurable, we want to think about how we track our progress. How will we know that we've reached our goal? What are some measurements that we can use? And especially, for measurable, we like to think about this more like days of the week, numbers of days of the week, or the amount of time that we're exercising. With measurable, we really don't like to focus on pounds, just because that doesn't tend to be the most motivating thing. And what we find is that if we start with days of the week or amount of time and build on those, if weight loss is the goal, the weight loss tends to happen, but it generally isn't the most helpful thing to focus on. So next, for attainable, we want those goals to be something that we can reach. It's good to shoot for the stars, but we don't want to be too extreme. And kind of we have the flip side of that. If a goal is too easy, that's not very motivating either. We really want to start to build momentum and work to keep that going. Next, we have relevant. So we want to set goals that are important for where you are right now, right? So we don't want to set a goal that someone else is pressuring you to reach. Those goals tend to be goals that aren't very motivating. This is going to be a goal that is set to motivate you, right? So you and one of your buddies at the station, you might be at different places with certain either activities or certain goals. So it makes sense that you guys might have different goals that are important to you and that motivate you differently. So next we have time bound. So we want to include an endpoint. So knowing that you have a deadline, that can really motivate you to get started. So those are all the components of our SMART goals, and now we can look at an example. So if you're setting a SMART goal, specifically one for physical activity, we want to make sure that we're considering our schedule. So not only our schedule at GFR, but other places of employment. We really want to take that into consideration as well, because we want to set a goal that's achievable and we want to set ourselves up for success. So instead of letting our schedule prevent us from making positive changes, we can acknowledge that our schedule might be a challenge and we can create a plan to be successful. So below I have some, the last 3 bullets on this slide are parts of an example plan to set different SMART goals for shift days and then days off. So looking at a shift day goal, that could look like I will complete at least 30 minutes of either strength training or cardio training, and you can define that based on what your goal is, in the 24-hour period. So I'll share this plan with a station officer or someone else for accountability. So you can see that we have our specific goal. So it's either going to be strength training or cardio. It's measurable. We used 30 minutes. It's attainable because if I have about an hour that I'm supposed to dedicate to physical fitness per shift, 30 minutes sounds like it's reasonable, and that's at least 30 minutes. So if I'm feeling like I can do a little bit more than that, maybe I do, but at least 30 minutes, that's attainable. This is relevant because I want to make sure that I am maintaining my physical fitness, and then it's time bound because it's in that 24-hour period. So that would be an example of a shift day goal, right? So, and then with this example, we have 2 days off. So our first day off, maybe that's the day that I use for my day to catch up on sleep. Maybe realistically, that's what my first day off looks like. And that's fine. We just want to make sure that we're incorporating that into the schedule, right? So first day goal, using this as either a rest or sleep day or a light exercise day. So, if I'm usually doing 30 minutes of strength training or cardio, maybe this is a day where I just kind of go on a walk, or who knows, it could be a day where I do some light stretching, right? Want to make sure we're incorporating that flexibility, mobility training as well. So that's our first day goal for our first day off. So for our second day off, our goal is at 8 a.m. I will complete at least 30 minutes of strength training or cardio at home gym or a friend's house. I will share this plan with Y, so a friend, a parent, a partner, child, for accountability. So with these, again, it's specific. So we have our strength and or cardio training. We get real specific here. So we have not only, what are you going to do? We have where is it going to be at, right? Because we have a lot of options. It's our off day. It's attainable, again, with that 30 minutes. It's relevant. It's working towards building some physical resilience. And then it's time bound. So this is happening at 8 a.m. on our off day. And then with both of these, another thing that I think is really important to acknowledge is that, we are adding in that accountability person for each of these. So that's not listed under the SMART goals, under our specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, or time bound. But anytime we're making lifestyle changes, accountability and bringing somebody else in to check up on us, to see if we're meeting our goal, or being able to check in with somebody else and just being able to let them know that we're working towards something can be really helpful. So now we're moving on to nutrition. So that's our second part that's really important to our physical resilience. We talked a little bit about some different tips related to physical activity, including activity pacing and SMART goals. Now we're going to move into nutrition. So first we have our quote. Firefighters, EMTs, and paramedics are fire rescue athletes. So that means we need to fuel our bodies just like we do our trucks and equipment. As such, it's important to ensure that fuel is quality fuel. And this is a quote from Aaron Zamzow, who's a firefighter and training officer for the Madison, Wisconsin Fire Department. So when we think about nutrition, we have a skill that I really enjoy teaching to folks. This skill is really focusing on the idea that you can make healthier choices by adjusting the quality, quantity, or frequency of your favorite meal or your favorite snack. And we really like this skill as behavioral health consultants because it tends to be really realistic. So to jump into this, first off, we love this example because Greenville tends to have a lot of fast food options. So we use the example of you love stopping for fried or breaded chicken after work. So looking at quality, quantity, and frequency, we look at just doing a little shift in each one of those areas so that the changes that we want to make, these lifestyle changes, are a little bit easier to cope with, a little bit easier to adjust to. And we just make these small little changes so that we can work towards improving our nutrition and improving our physical resilience. So first, looking at quality. So you love stopping for fried chicken on the way home, but maybe instead of eating fried chicken, you order grilled chicken. Right? So that's a change. You're still getting that chicken in there. It's still potentially, that fast food chicken, but this way, it's grilled instead of fried. So already you're cutting out some of that breading, cutting out some of that oil. It's already a healthier choice. But maybe, maybe just the grilled chicken really just isn't going to do it for you. Maybe you're like, I love my fried chicken. I love my breaded chicken. I don't want to change that. So maybe you decide to change the quantity instead. So instead of having a meal with, for example, 3 chicken strips, you could have a meal with 2 chicken strips. Or maybe having a meal with 4 chicken strips, you have a meal with 3 or 2 chicken strips. So this is an example of changing quantity. Again, this is a small change. It might not cut out, a chicken strip probably isn't going to be cutting out like 500 calories, but it might cut out 100 or 200 calories, depending on, what kind of chicken strips you're having. Those small changes add up. And that's what we want to really keep in mind with this. So maybe you're like, I understand what you're saying, right? I could have grilled chicken, but realistically, I want my fried chicken. I want my fried chicken strips, and I don't want 2. I want my 3 fried chicken strips. Okay, we can work with that too, no worries. So our last option up here is frequency. So maybe you're like, I want my 3 fried chicken strips, and instead of having fried chicken 3 times a week, maybe you decide to have fried chicken twice a week or once a week. So these are just some options of kind of what some of these small changes could look like. And it's always a great reminder that you have a lot of options of a lot of different little small changes that you can make along the way. And keeping in mind that, you might have some non-negotiables. So you're not necessarily having to do this with every food, right? We want to really focus on those small changes. We don't want you to deprive yourself of everything that you love that might not be the healthiest food. There are some different changes that you can make to accommodate what works for you with your schedule and with the foods that you want to eat while still keeping in mind your health goals. So, after we've gone through this, I definitely want you all to think about Is there a food in your life that you feel like you could use either a change in quality, quantity, or frequency for? Think about how you might do that. So our next slide is focusing on nutrition and some common traps that people fall into when they're making some nutrition changes. So the first one is eating from the bag. I love this picture because it has a TV a TV remote right next to the bowl of popcorn. So oftentimes when we're eating a lot of snacks and eating things that we can, especially like finger foods, things that we can eat with our hands, oftentimes we're doing that while we're watching TV. And eating out of the bag can make it very difficult to only have one serving size of anything. So what we would encourage instead is that you have a bowl, or you have a plate, or you have a napkin or something that you can put whatever snack you're having. You get a serving size amount, actually reading the packaging material to figure out how much a serving size is, and making sure you're putting that much in a bowl or napkin or what have you to go eat that. So that will make it much more likely that you're actually eating a serving size. And you can always get more if you'd like, but it makes it a lot easier to control our portions when we're making sure that we're not eating from the bag. Another thing that makes it difficult to kind of follow through with some of our nutrition changes is not planning out our snacks, not planning out our meals. So if you've had a long day and you are, coming home, you haven't really planned things out, nothing's really ready, you're going to be a lot more likely to go to one of those fast food places that we talked about, right? You're going to be much more likely to eat maybe like comfort food that seems quick and easy. Whereas if you kind of thought about some of the snacks or some of the meals that you might eat, this is probably a little bit easier. And our last one is not eating enough fruits and veggies. So fruits and vegetables have a lot of different vitamins. They can be a very filling snack or filling side. And we can make sure that we have the healthiest versions, usually are raw or steamed versions of these fruits and vegetables. We want to make sure we're not having our fruits and vegetables that are, really focused on sugar or added fats. That makes it a lot difficult to make sure that we're getting that nutritional value out of those. But these are, we could flip these in the same way that we talked about. These are some of the traps. If you flip these and think about eating a serving size in a container, it turns into a tip instead of a trap, right? Thinking about planning out our meals and snacks, it turns into a tip instead of a trap. And making sure that we're eating enough fruits and vegetables. Planning out eating enough fruits and vegetables in our day. Those are going to be some of the things that are the most helpful. So that's actually all that I have for you today. So, if any of this has piqued your interest, or you want to know more about the Resilience series or SMART goals related to physical activity or nutrition, feel free to reach out to us. Our emails are up here. Again, I'm Janelle Williams, and Dr. Megan Lax has done some of the videos for you in the past, so you can feel free to reach out to either one of us. And as always, thank you for your attention and your commitment to serving our community. And have a great one. I'll see you in the next video.